Hey there, Chad here, and this is an episode of Kerbal Space Program in 2022. In this episode, I am going to send a probe to Eve. The mission is called Explore Eve, but if we look at it specifically, I have to do a flyby. Okay, so a flyby is the easiest of the missions to do. You literally just have to enter the sphere of influence of the body that you're aiming at. I'm actually going to try to send this rocket so that it gets into an orbit around Eve. That would kind of be the next step, would be to orbit and then eventually land on Eve. I think I can go ahead and make a rocket that is going to accomplish that, and so that will be my actual goal. However, success on the mission simply has to do with doing a flyby. Now, a couple of things to know about this. First of all, I have mentioned that I use Astrogator, and what I use Astrogator for is strictly to monitor the best time to do a launch for going to another body. Now, Astrogator, if I had a rocket active right now and I pulled this up, it would allow me to set up nodes. I don't really know how that works because I don't tend to use that. I really just use this to measure the windows. There's also websites out there that will give you the best launch windows, tells you when to wait till and things like that in order to make that happen. With this, it kind of gives me a number here and I can click fast forward and I can just count it down. Now I'm going to stop this at about 20 days before the ideal window. Okay, and we're at about 21 days. There's a couple of reasons I'm not waiting until the last minute on this, and hopefully that'll become kind of evident as we go through this. One thing I do want to mention is I only have this mission right now, and that's kind of important. If you're going to fast forward 200 days, you do need to pay attention to that if you're in career mode, because the missions, a lot of them have expiration dates. This mission doesn't have a duration. A couple of things to know. I've done a few missions in the meantime to gather a little science and a little bit of money to do some upgrades. A couple of things to know. The important one is advanced unmanned tech. I picked up this because it has the Probodyne Hex 2 probe. So this is the, effectively the brain of the operation, and this is the top end one. This gives me full control of SAS, including maneuver control, and that's extremely important, and we'll demonstrate that here and there. I still have 1,200 points here to use, and I actually have a little more than that. I'll show that off here in just a minute. Let's go ahead and spend some of this. I'm going to buy the extra battery. Now, I actually don't need anything more for the rocket that I'm building, but in the future, I know that I have more than once wished I had grabbed this when I had the opportunity, and I thought, oh, I'll get it next time, and then I hit a space where I can't get enough research to get what I want there. So I'm going to go ahead and buy that. Still have 600 plus points. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. I don't really need these, but they could unlock something in the future. I suppose this one has the clamp and things like that, and that could be important at some point. But we'll go ahead and grab these other ones as well then. And so I've got that cleaned up. Now all of these start at 300, so I don't have enough science points to buy any more categories right now, except, as you may recall, we put a lab in space, and I called it Star Lab, and their job is to turn data into science. So they still have 483 data units, but they have kind of filled up the science bin. They really can't do any more work right now until I transport some of this science, or transmit it rather, not transport, but transmit it to the planet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. In order to do that, I literally just come down here and say transmit science. Now, this particular space station has a tremendous amount of battery. I have nothing to worry about with regards to battery. Normally you would want to do this operation in the sunlight though, because you don't want it to drain the battery and then fail to finish and have to start the whole process over, because it does take a couple of minutes. I know I'm going to be safe here, but it would have been prudent to wait until I was on the other side of the planet and in the sun and gathering some more electricity, but this will be fine. And we'll go ahead and fast forward through this piece. Okay, and that just finished up. You saw the message up there, and we'll jump back to the Space Center and then go to R&D, and what we, instead of being in the 300 neighborhood, or I think it was actually 160, wasn't it? Yeah, we're now at 687 points, so I would be able to buy a couple more of these if I chose. I'm going to hold off on that. I really don't need them at this point. Okay. Okay, to save a little bit of time, I've gone ahead and created a rocket already, and we'll take a quick look at that. I have named this Rocket Eve Probe 1. And this is it. The important part here, I think, is the booster system. The booster is 2 twin bores on the sides. They have extra fuel on top, and they're connected to a Jumbo 64 fuel tank and a main cylinder engine here. So this is my core delivery system, and it produces a tremendous amount of thrust. Let's take a look at the top here, and we're actually going to edit a little bit of this. I've decided this is a little bit of overkill, and there's a couple of things I can drop here, and so we're going to go ahead and do that. First of all, I'm going to clear up this fairing so it's easier to see. We'll just delete it altogether because we're going to end up rebuilding it. So here's that Hex 2. It is the workhorse of this particular probe. I have a Science Junior on top of it and a magnetometer. Other science on here is the mystery goo. I have some barometers and thermometers. I also included initially these atmospheric readers. I don't know that I need to take those because I'm not really intending to go into the atmosphere. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just take these off. I'm not going to need them, and we'll save a little bit of weight there. I had also included some radiators, and those aren't going to be necessary. Then the other key components on this are the huge solar arrays, and then these antenna. And the antenna are overkill. This is way more antenna than we actually need for Eve with the tracking station we have. Now, there is a kind of a curve to how much antenna you need versus your distance and that, but we should be well within receiving distance with this. And then I've got 2 of them. It doesn't double the ability. There is a fall off for additional antenna on a ship, but for all intents and purposes, 1 would probably be enough, so 2 should certainly cover us, and we're not going to go into any more detail on that. I do recommend looking up some of those tutorials that others have done on how some of that works. It's a little bit out of my area of expertise. I'm going to do one other quick change here. I took a lot of monopropellant with me, and what I discovered is I really didn't need it. So I'm going to actually take one of these mono tanks and remove it. And when I say I took this with me, and I basically test flew this so that I don't waste everybody's time in making a video that's completely useless. So I know this rocket will work. I know it can get there, and we can use the pieces that we've put on there if it looks like this. So go ahead and build out this fairing. First thing I want to do is get it wide enough to cover the solar array there. And there we go. Now what you're not seeing here is by dropping the pieces that I dropped, I gained about 350 meters per second of delta V, which isn't insignificant. For the length of this trip, we wouldn't need that much of it. We probably will end up using it because we're going to try to make an orbit, and we'll try to make as nice of an orbit as we can. But to do just the flyby, we really only needed about 4,500 to 5,000 delta V to make this work. I also want to show off the action groups. We're going to create action groups for the fairing and for the deployables, specifically the solar panels and the communication array. So I'm going to delete this fairing. I will grab it again here in a second, but for now we're going to delete it. And I'm going to go up here to Actions. Click on Actions, and this gives me a few things. And before I touch anything else, I want to click on the thing I want to create an action group for. And in this case, I want to do the fairing. So I'm going to click on the fairing, and then I'm going to click the number that I want to be tied to the action group. And this is the alphanumeric key. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I assume 10 is 0. I'm going to make this group 9. So I'm going to click on 9. And then what I'm going to do is this, because I have the fairing selected, it gives me a list of the things that the fairing can do. And all I'm going to do is click deploy, and that moves it over here. And I'm done. That's all I wanted to do. We're good to go. Okay, then the other one I want to do in custom group 1, so this will be item 9. I'm going to tap the 9 key to get the fairing to deploy at some point. It also will show up in staging. I won't need it to stage though. I will have already done it at that point. Then these other items, so I'm going to click here on the solar panels and I've clicked on custom item 1, and all I want to do is I just want to extend the solar panels. That'll do both of them, and I want to do the same for the communication array. Extend antenna. That'll be on custom item 1. Good to go. We'll click here. We'll save this one more time, and we will go back out to the launch pad. Because of the overall length of this mission, I'm going to go ahead and end this part of the episode right now. We'll have a part 2 and a part 3 coming up. I hope you stick around for those. In the meantime, thanks for your time and fair travels.